we have another representation of the Philippine Sea Plate and the other types of plate or tectonic plates that are responsible for destructive earthquakes in the Philippines. So the Philippine Sea Plate is comprising oceanic lithosphere that lies beneath the Philippine Sea to the east of the Philippines. Most segments of the Philippines, including northern Luzon, are part of the Philippine Mobile Belt, which is geologically and tectonically separated from the Philippine Sea Plate. So the Eurasian Plate, yung nakikita nyo dyan sa upper portion ng Philippine map natin, that is being subducted along the western side of Luzon. So pag merong subduction na mangyayari, magkakaroon ng earthquakes or tsunami. So meaning there is a possibility for sideway movement or downward movement of the edge of plates. So it is subducted along the western side of Luzon and Mindoro at a rate of 3 cm per year. So gumagalaw yung Eurasian Plate na yan sa western side of Luzon and Mindoro. So the Philippine Fault Zone decouples the northwestward motion of the Pacific with the southwestward motion of the Eurasian Plate. So these movements along other active faults are responsible for the present-day high seismicity of the Philippine Archipelago. Yan yung responsible kung bakit nakakaramdam tayo ng mga different types of intensity and magnitudes of earthquakes. So for the last 35 years, the Philippines have been affected by 10 earthquakes with magnitude greater than 7. Hence, when two plates move, set boundaries of both plates would have the highest risk of disaster. Based on the data provided by an earthquake tracking website, the Philippines records an average of 200 to 500 earthquakes of varying magnitude every year. Most of the quakes are low and are deemed insignificant relative to impact. So this explains that small cluster of earthquakes may be warning sign of larger one to come. So the experts say that every time a small earthquake happens, doesn't mean there is going to be a larger one. It depends on your location. Earthquakes are measured using instruments called seismometers that detect the vibration caused by seismic waves. So we have the two types of waves, the P waves and the S waves. They travel through crust. So seismic waves can be both natural from earthquakes or caused also by human activity, just like explosion or bombing or any kind of catastrophic events. As the ground vibrates, a zigzag line is recorded. As you can see in our image, the zigzag lines. That is how we record the vibration of the ground due to seismic activities. So we have the big idea. So earthquakes are frequent in the Philippines because the country is near the Pacific Ring of Fire, in that it is traversed in its midsection by the Philippine Fault System, the western edge of the Philippine Plate. So this explains that the Philippines lies along the Pacific Ring of Fire, which causes the country to have frequent seismic and volcanic activity. Many earthquakes of smaller magnitude occur regularly due to this. So since the year 2011, we record all the earthquakes in the Philippines. Every year, we encounter about 2,000 earthquakes. Most of them are weak, but about 12% are felt of major tectonic plates in every region. An earthquake is a violent shaking of the ground produced by the sudden movement of rock materials below the Earth's surface. The earthquakes originate in tectonic plates boundary. The focus is point inside the Earth where the earthquake started, sometimes called the hypocenter, and the point on the surface of the Earth directly above the focus is called the epicenter. So to further explain this, we have the image of the focus and the hypocenter. As you can see, earthquake originate in the tectonic plate boundaries because this type of boundary is dominated by normal faulting, and although other types of faulting may be observed, as like the reverse and the strike slip faulting. The hot magma rises from the mantle and the mid-ocean ridges pushing the plates apart. The earthquakes occur along the fractures that appear as the plates move apart. So in our image, the hypocenter is the point within the earth where an earthquake rupture starts. So dyan nagsisimula yung rupture or yung tinatawag nating frictional forces dyan sa hypocenter. So the epicenter is the point directly above. So meaning yung point dun sa ground na naka-direct straight dun sa hypocenter natin ay tinatawag natin epicenter. So pag malapit ka sa epicenter ng earthquake, you can experience the total movement of the ground at kung gaano kalangkas yung intensity at magnitude ng lindol. So we have another image. So in summary, now focus where the earthquake begins. That is also related or connected to our hypocenter. The epicenter is the point on the ground directly above the focus. So kung ano yung lupa na ka-direct straight to our focus, yun yung tinatawag nating epicenter. And the fault is the weak point in the tectonic plate where pressure within the crust is released. So since na weak yung portion ng lupa na yon, dun magkakaroon ng crack or rupture na tinatawag nating fault or fault lines. So there are two ways by which we can measure the strength of an earthquake: magnitude and intensity. Magnitude is proportional to the energy released by an earthquake at the focus. It is calculated from earthquake recorded by an instrument called seismograph. Yung seismograph, yan yung ginagamit ng mga seismologists natin and also volcanologists. So we have an image of the seismograph, no? We have the fixed mass, no? Nakakabit dyan sa lever natin. We have the frame, we have the base, the ground movement. Nakadepende sa ground movement yung i-record na zigzag line ng ating nakahang na object or fixed mass na tinatawag, parang pendulum. Yung pendulum na yan, meron siyang needle na dyan makikita yung movement ng ground. So how do we measure the magnitude and intensity of an earthquake? So magnitude and intensity measures the different characteristic of earthquake. Magnitude measures the energy release at the source of the earthquake. Magnitude is determined also from measurement on seismographs. Intensity measures the strength of shaking produced by the earthquake at a certain location. So today, we measure earthquake using seismographs, which monitor the seismic waves travel through the earth after an earthquake strikes. Scientists use Richter scale for many years, but now largely follow the a moment magnitude scale, which the U.S. Geological Survey is a more accurate measure of size of an earthquake. So earthquakes intensity scale is represented by Arabic numbers. Intensity on the other hand is the strength of an earthquake as perceived and felt by people in a certain locality. So iba-iba yung nararamdaman nating intensity. Depende sa location natin kung gaano tayo kalapit sa epicenter ng lindol or ng earthquake. It is a numerical rating based on the relative effects to people, objects, environment, and structures in the surrounding. The intensity is generally higher near the epicenter. It is represented by Roman numerals. Sample, we have the 2 das, which is 2, or yung das na yan, and then the letter V, which is 4, and so on. In the Philippines, the intensity of an earthquake is determined using the PBOX earthquake intensity scale. Yung image natin represents the PBOX EIS or earthquake intensity scale. No? Pag 1, it is only scarcely perceptible. Pag 2, slightly felt lang. Pag 3, weak pa, mahina pa. Pag 4, moderate, strong, so medyo nararamdaman na. Pag nasa sa first floor. Pag strong, nararamdaman mo siya kahit dun ka pa sa second floor ng bahay. Pag intensity 6, very strong na, no? Pwedeng nang magkaroon ng panic yung mga naninirahan sa isang building. Magkakaroon ng pag-crack sa mga walls ng building or any kind of establishment. Diyan din sa intensity 7, medyo serious na, destructive na siya, no? So gumagalaw na talaga yung lupa. Hindi lang yung infrastructure, kundi yung mismong pinatitirikan ng bahay or ng isang gusali. Intensity 8, very destructive na. And 9, devastating. And 10, completely devastating. So an earthquake intensity is an Arabic numbers because of the reason the Richter scale uses Arabic numbers. To the rate, the amount of energy or its magnitude. We already know that the amount of energy is in discrete random variables, which means countable. No? So the size or strength of an earthquake may be measured by the intensity or kind of damage that occurs. So we differentiate magnitude from intensity. So in magnitude, it is the energy released by an earthquake at the focus. It is calculated from earthquakes recorded by an instrument called the seismograph. So otherwise, on the other hand, the intensity is the strength of an earthquake, perceived and felt by people in a certain locality. Intensity is generally higher near the epicenter. So yung magnitude is technologically measured, while the intensity is the actual measurement felt by people and the damage caused, no? Yung mga nasirang gusali or iba't ibang klase ng infrastructure. We have the figure of a tectonic plate of the Philippine of the Earth and the Philippines fault system. So this tectonic plates has the significance in our Earth plate movements. So the plate tectonics provides a mechanism for this global thermostat. So most of volcanism on the Earth occurs at the plate boundaries in response to plate tectonics, and the most important volcanic product by mass by a large amount are to the Philippine fault system. It's a major interrelated system of geological faults.